Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome today Masters of Ceremony Romy Neumark, creator, anchorwoman, and the host of the nightly news on Kan 11 Israeli Public Broadcasting Corporation, Romy Neumark.
Hello and welcome to the Scientific Achievements Plenary Session and the Research Awards Ceremony. I would like to welcome our esteemed guests, President Professor Asher Cohen, Rector Professor Barak Medina, Vice President for Research and Development Professor Re'em Sari, dear donors and family members, award winners, researchers, lecturers, and dear guests. My name is Romy Neumark, and I'm excited to be here today to share with you the groundbreaking studies that are currently taking place at the Hebrew University. We are privileged to live in a special era of history where the future and present feel closer than ever before. But the privilege holds within it a great responsibility to do our best, to become the best researchers, facilitators, mentors, or entrepreneurs who strive to discover what has not yet been discovered for the common good. It was Albert Einstein who said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing." And there is certainly a lot of curiosity in this room today. To open the session, I would like to invite Vice President for Research and Development, Professor Re'em Sari, to share with us recent developments, main achievements, and new directions in the field of research at the Hebrew University. Professor Sari, please.
Thank you, Romy. Mr. President, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, Rector, awardees, their families, donors, guests, my fellow researchers, deans, welcome. What a wonderful 6 days, 5 days, six days we had so far. I think by now you have experienced a lot of what we're doing at the Hebrew University and feeling proud of these achievements. I will try to give a short summary. We're a little bit behind schedule, so I'll make it short. A short summary of what is going on here, what are our achievements and how is it compared to previous years and so on. You have heard so much. So by the end of this session, I would like you to take 3 messages home. One is that research at the Hebrew University is going well. Despite the pandemic, research hasn't missed a heartbeat on what is going on, and I will try to support that with some numbers. That's message number 1. Message number 2, we are working hard to facilitate the fact that it will continue to go this way in the future, and I will try to show you how. And message number 3 is that we're investing strongly in our most important assets, which are our young faculty. And I will try to show you some of that as well. Okay, let's begin. And as I said, with numbers. This is a list of the amount of funds that went into research over the years. You see that we are roughly talking in the last years about $200 million per year going on to research. And it's growing every year. So as you can see, this summarizes, this sums up the activity, at least in monetary sense, of what is going on in the Hebrew University, and it is rising. Where are all these funds coming from? Our major source of funding is the Israel Science Foundation, the ERC, and the ISF. ERC will come next. So the 2 columns on the left show how many such grants we received last year and how many we received this year. And the rest of the columns to the right, they show what other universities in Israel did. So what can you see? You see that we are increasing over time, and we are by far the largest receiver of this grant in Israel. I think this result of this past year are so large that it's hard for me to think that we'll be able to maintain such an amazing result, but we'll certainly make this effort. Total amount of funding coming just from this single funder is $35 million this last year. So that's part of this 200 million that is going into research. Connection with the US, with the Israel-US Binational Science Foundation. You can see another $6 million. You can see again the number of grants we have this year, almost 40. The largest number of any university in Israel, again. The most prestigious grants we have are the ERC, provided by the European Union. These are divided to 3 categories, starting, intermediate, and advanced. You see that this last year we got 5 in the beginning level, 2 in the intermediate, and 3 in the advanced. These are gigantic grants, so even though there are only 10 grants in here, they amount to a total of almost 20 million euros, almost comparable to the ISF, somewhat smaller. Let me see what I can say a little bit in more detail about this, what we can learn from the distribution of people that you see in here. First, there is a prevalence for computer science in here in a big way. 5 of these people are affiliated with computer science. And 3 of them in the starting grant category. So computer science is doing well. You have heard also yesterday in the rector's session from Sarah Cohen, the dean of the computer science. So you can know what's going on in there. Let me also point out a big prevalence of physics. Yonit Ochberg, Nathalie Balaban, Zvi Piran, and Mor Nitzan also joined between physics and computer science. We'll hear more from Mor Nitzan a little bit later in my session. Mathematics also is here. We're missing this year humanities, but I hope we'll get them back again next year. We're pretty strong in humanities among the Israeli universities. Another thing that we succeeded very strongly this year, more than usual, is collaborative grants with the other European Union countries. And overall, we raised about 5 million euros this way, again, going into research. This requires some team efforts. It's a more complicated endeavor, and there is a lot of room to grow. I want to say that while in the ISF we have sort of maxed out our capabilities, as I said, we're taking already more than our fair share of the funding pie. In the ERC, we're in a bigger pool with all of Europe, so we can grow much more than this. So I hope that next year we can present an even bigger picture than this. This is already impressive. Compared to other countries in Europe, this puts us in the top 10 places. But I think we can do even better given the amazing faculty that we have. Okay, this is about basic research. And some people say that basic research, especially the way I presented it, it converts money into ideas. And I showed you the ways we're getting money into this process. And applied research does exactly the opposite. It takes ideas and tries to convert them into money. And there is no conservation of energy law in this, so you can have a perpetuum mobile in this. Ideas will create money, and money will create ideas, and so on. We have here the CEO of ISUM, which will join us on the stage in a few minutes. And ISUM is also doing great, despite the pandemic. ISUM is the tech transfer company of the Hebrew University. And you can see how many licenses, close to 100 licenses, close to 100 sponsored research agreements, more funding coming into research to the university. Also about 100 new patents and 50 new companies coming out of the university just the past year. You can compare this to the numbers listed below, which are the achievements in previous years. And you can see that we're doing well despite everything that is going on. I can point out some companies that stand out, so-called unicorns. Unicorns are privately, it's a nickname for privately held companies. whose worth is estimated to be $1 billion and above. Billion, not million. $1 billion and above. And we have 4 of these, either already or in the making. Future Meat creates alternative meat by culturing cells. Better Juice is taking the sugar out of natural juices. Orcam is a company that enables people with difficulties to see, to read different things, labels of things in the supermarket, or just read or identify people and so on. And TriEye is a company that creates infrared sensors whose cost is about 1,000 times less than the current technology allows. So any of these companies does several things. It showcases the achievements of the research at the Hebrew University. It allows the ideas generated at the Hebrew University to come out. It also brings funding to the university, so it's good in every possible way. So how to keep this success going? What should we do in order to keep this? So I claim there are 3 things that we are pushing. One is we should make sure that our infrastructure is in par with what it needs to be. This is a huge investment, and I'll try to show you how huge it is. The second is to identify new directions and centers, and you heard about that in the previous few days, about the various centers and directions the Hebrew University is going through, and I will mention that a little bit too. And the third is to make sure that we're recruiting the best people possible, and we'll get to that as well. Okay, let me give you a few examples of infrastructure that we are right now planning and applying for that will come in the next year or so. So the first one, it's about $2.5 million investment, is a clock, basically, just a clock. So you see on the, on the right-hand side, there is the old clock that we're all familiar with. And on the left-hand side, this is the clock that we're buying. It will cost $2.5 million, and it's going to be part of a network of clocks that will be distributed in Israel in a cost of $6 million at different universities. Our part is the largest because we have Liron Stern, who is the biggest expert on using such clocks. What is so special about these clocks? So what is a clock? A clock is a machine that measures time. How does a clock measure time? It has something in it that vibrates in a rate that is more or less constant. And the clock on the right uses a simple fact in physics that if you have a pendulum, it has a period that is more or less independent of how big the motion is. If you don't believe me, I can show you. We'll take this power supply, we'll turn it into a pendulum. Okay? And I'll swing this pendulum, and you can try to measure in your head how long does it take it to make a swing. 1, 2, 3. If I make a bigger swing, 1, 2, 3, it takes the same time. So that's the principle in which this clock on the right-hand side is working. There is a pendulum there, and the pendulum vibrates at a constant rate. You can measure 3 ticks, gives you a certain amount of time. So what is wrong with that clock? Why do we need the much more sophisticated clock on the left? The clock on the right is very sensitive. Actually, it is a complicated system. It has a lever, and the rate of the swing does depend on the length of that lever. If that line is becoming too long because it's hotter in that day, it will swing at a longer period. If there is friction with the air, if the joints are rusted or whatever, it makes the clock lose time. The clocks that we have on our hands, anybody that has a digital clock, it loses about 1 second every day. The clock that is here on the left-hand side is losing 1 second every 300 million years. Okay? So that's the difference between the two, and that's why we're going for this. When we have a clock like that, it will be part of the international network as well that helps determine the global time. What is the time? everywhere in the universe. So what's the principle behind this? You use vibrations of the atom, basically the motions of the electron around the nucleus of the atom, and it becomes more and more difficult to connect to that because these vibrations are very, very quick. So while the clock on the right-hand side is easy to use, the one on the left is actually simple. It uses just a few atoms rather than a complicated system. Therefore, it's more stable. The problem is just to connect to it and to read it correctly. And we have the experts that can do that. Another instrument that is actually coming already in a few months costs more than $2 million, and with the installation it will cost even more, can implant ions on the surface of different films. Both this and the previous one are examples of our main efforts in quantum information. So this is one of the directions that the Hebrew University is going for. Another one is a fabrication machine that allows to build small devices. We'll go into the nanocenter, again part of our quantum efforts. And here's Shlomi Kotler, who just received the Physics World Breakthrough of the Year for being able to build small devices like shown in his hand, which can vibrate simultaneously in some correlated way, which we call entanglement. Not only quantum physics is expensive, another direction we're going is trying to purchase a microscope. You all heard about our ABSL3 lab that we basically just put the cornerstone on Monday, I think. And the cornerstone for the computational medicine building and the ABSL3 lab next to it that can deal with viruses, and coronavirus is of course the virus we're all talking about. Here are images of coronavirus taken with this amazing microscope. It's a microscope that is using electrons in some sophisticated way with a revolution that happened in the last decade that allows us to build these microscopes. It is this microscope that allows to unravel the structure of the spike protein at the edge of the coronavirus, and therefore the ways we can handle it, break it, allow the immunity system to tackle it, and so on. Prices of microscopes like that cost between $3 and $10 million, depending on exactly what configuration you want. And we're going to buy one of these. Probably we'll start with the less expensive one and go on further. So pushing for large equipment is something that we're doing this year, and we're doing that more than we've done that in the past. Another thing we've built is a computer cluster at a cost of $2.5 million just for the equipment itself, and another almost similar sum for building the area in which this computer is going to be hosted. The building for computational medicine I already mentioned, and we'll hear more on computational medicine at the end of my session. Humanities, digital humanities, we heard about that also from Orly Lewis yesterday, and there is another international collaboration that we started recently with Freie University in Berlin and with University of Zurich, where the three institutes are interested in digital humanities. This is the ability to study digital humanity questions with digital tools. And we combine these institutes to bring more questions and more tools onto the table. So the power of three is going to be bigger than what we can do separately. Another big effort that we're doing in Singapore. So Singapore invites a few of the most prestigious universities to a new campus that they have built there a few decades ago. And we're one of them, together with Berkeley, together with Cambridge, together with TUM and other prestigious institutes. And they just funded a $25 million Singaporean dollar project to design and build smart robots using soft materials. So another direction we are building on. Finally, we saw Eitan Stiva yesterday that flew to space, and we're going, Hebrew University is trying to go to the moon on the successor of the Bereshit mission. So Bereshit is the mission that went to the moon, but unfortunately arrived too fast to the moon and crashed on the surface of the moon. And there is now Bereshit 2 that is going to try to both orbit the moon and send some landers in there. And the Hebrew University is sending an experiment or applying to send an experiment to there. I would like to end, but because we're already in space, I had to put something more in space. Here is an image that I'm sure you have seen recently. The first, it was all over the news, the first image of the black hole in the center of the galaxy. That's on the left. And on the right, you see the motion of stars in the same galaxy, our own galaxy, the Milky Way. And I'm showing that both because it's an exciting discovery, because it's an example of the prediction of the Einstein's theory of relativity, and Hebrew University and Einstein are tightly connected, and because we have a fantastic team of researchers that are trying to understand all the mechanisms that are going on here. What are the stars around? How do they orbit the black hole? What sets the orbit? How do they die? How do they explode when they orbit it? And so on. Okay. So I showed you the new directions we're pushing to. I showed you the investment in infrastructure. And I want to show you the investment in our new recruits. What do we have to do there? So of course we have to choose only the best. We have to give them the conditions that they need. So that's another place this $200 million funding goes to finance these new recruits. It costs us between $20 and $30 million per year to build and furnish the labs of the new recruits. It's extremely expensive, and the donors that are sitting here are highly responsible for this. And to really show you the new recruits, I would like to invite two recent recruits, one more new, one not as new, but both new enough, to join me on the stage for a short discussion. Mor Nitzan and Moran Yasur. Both are related to, well, we'll talk to them and see what are they related to. Hi. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
So, Moran Yasur, Mor Nitzan. When I prepared this, I just saw there's one nun separating your names. It's almost the same, Mor and Moran. So, why won't we start by each of you telling us about your research, maybe in 3 minutes?
Okay. So hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. My name is Moran Yasur, and I'm a computational biologist. We're actually both computational biologists. And so my lab is joint between the medical faculty in Karem and the School of Computer Science in Givat Ram, and we study the infant gut microbiome. Infants, you all know. Gut, I'm sure you all know. Microbiome is basically the community of microbes, microorganisms that live in our body. Specifically, we study, again, the gut. We have trillions and trillions of those gut bacteria. Most of them are bacteria. There are some viruses and archaeas. And we're interested in three main questions. One is, how do these communities of microbes establish at birth? So I think I've talked to a few of you before, but delivery mode is the first most significant factor that impacts the community in our gut. The second question is, how is this community of microbes developing over time? And so, for example, how is breastfeeding or other practices in early life impact the development and the change of this community of microbes? And lastly, why should we care? What's the impact of these communities that we have in our gut? And how do these impact specifically the pediatric health, the infant's health? And so we have studies that look at allergies in infants. We have studies that look at kids, older kids with inflammatory bowel diseases, Crohn's and colitis or IBD. And we want to ask the question of how the composition and the function of the gut microbes impact their health eventually. We use technologies, so we have an experimental lab and a computational lab. We perform a lot of sequencing, which I'm sure you've talked about at some sort of avenue here, which is the revolution of the past 10 years or so in biology. We have more traditional sequencing, and we have newer high-tech sequencing that we do in our lab, which is basically at the forefront of the sequencing technology. We also grow the bacteria. We get a lot of, my kids always joke that their mom studies poop. So we have a lot of poop samples, and basically we isolate bacteria from a lot of these samples, and we check them in the lab to see what can they utilize, how do they grow best, how do they communicate with one another, and so on. And so we have a very unique and awesome group of students spanning from microbiology and medicine to computer science and machine learning, trying to wrap around this topic from all the different angles that we can think of.
Right, so yeah, it's also very nice to be here. So our group, we have a computational group that's joined between the School of Computer Science and Engineering and the Institute of Physics and the Faculty of Medicine. And we develop computational methods that are based on ideas and methodologies taken from computer science and physics, such as machine learning and dynamical systems theory, to better understand collective behavior in biological systems. So, for example, if you think about a tissue like if you think about the heart or the liver or the colon, each one of these is actually a very complex system composed of billions of different entities, right? So you have many different cells that have to work together to actually make this whole system work, to make it tick and maintain a healthy state, right? So they have to communicate with each other, they have to divide labor, they have to transfer information from one part of the tissue to the other to let other cells know that maybe something went wrong on the other side of the liver. And to understand all of that, we take advantage of a recent revolution in experimental biology that allows us to measure millions of individual cells from each tissue in our body, in both health and disease. And once people started doing that over the last decade, they realized that actually, it's not, when you think about liver cells, they're not all the same, right? So there's a huge diversity, and each cell is unique and acts slightly differently based on where it is in the tissue and what other neighboring cells it sees around it, and its history. And you have all this diversity, and what we're trying to figure out is how can we basically answer many of the fundamental questions in biology and medicine through that lens. For example, what are the structures of different tissues and how they develop over time, and how do they change in disease? And the challenge is that this data is huge, so we can't just stare at it. We have to develop advanced computational methods to actually figure out what's going on. And just a very quick example is that lately we've been developing a method to infer the whole structure of a tissue based on just a very small sample of cells that are taken from, for example, from a biopsy within the body. So we have to, can't really see experimentally what's going on, so we have to fill these gaps computationally, in our case, using machine learning and optimization and dynamical systems theory. And now this method is being used to infer the structure of many different tissues in health and disease, and how one transfers to the other, and maybe how can we tweak it and designed differently.
Thank you. I want to mention that I actually met Mo quite a few years ago when she was a student in physics. She actually started in physics, not in biology. And when I mentioned it to my current PhD student, he said, "Oh, Mo, the legendary Mo. This is the one we all used to go to the TA sessions. We skipped all the other ones. We all went to Mo." So if you remember my list of people winning the ERC grants, 2 of them, Mor Nitzan is one of them, and Nathalie Balaban is another one, are physicists that are now working or answering questions in biology. So Mor, what is the advantage in that? Should I do that too? Should I, what's going on? I'm a physicist, should I answer questions in biology? Or?
So what's the advantage of coming to physics, to these types
Starting
of
from physics
problems?
And going into biology.
Right. So I did my undergraduate and all the way to my PhD in physics at the Hebrew University. And I'm really happy I did that. Actually, when I started, I was already very interested in medicine and biology. But I had the feeling that I would be able to answer questions that are maybe inaccessible otherwise if I would have the type of thinking and tools at my fingertips coming from physics. And I think that's true. I think as a physicist, you learn to frame problems and understand how to solve them, basically look around you and try to formulate models for how things work in the world. And that's true for planetary motion, and it's also true for how cells in our body organize and behave collectively to give rise to very complex behaviors that are fundamental to our health.
So you both won or managed to secure quite prestigious awards with lots of funding. More, you have the ERC. Moran, you have the big grant from the Helmsley Foundation and a long list of other things, which I don't even remember. What are you going to do with all this? Is there a specific purpose that this is going for? What are your major expenses going to be? Why is it needed?
Why do we need money to do our research? To fly to the Caribbean? No. Most of our money is spent on scholarships for students, in my case. Let's say half-half go to, again, extremely talented group of students that I enjoy working with. And we know we can't really compete with the outside world, especially in computer science. And so we know we have to be attractive. We need to be sufficient with our money, but attractive in our science. And about the other half goes to research expenses. So sequencing, for example, costs a lot of money. And the deeper we want to sequence a sample, that means the more data we want to extract out of it, the more money we pay. And I personally really like technology, and so we like to try new technologies in the lab, and so those are pricey too. But once in a while, you try one that is really successful, like that newer technology of sequencing that I told you in a quick version of it. And so that allows us now to go deeper into the bacteria that we study. And so I would say roughly we're talking about half of the amount goes to scholarship and half of the amount goes to wet lab experiments and sequencing and generating our data.
So for us, we're a computational group, so the vast majority goes to students and postdocs, to fellowships. There is another fraction that goes to computational resources. As I told you, we have to deal with and analyze a lot of data and develop computational tools to understand what's going on. So we need the computational resources to back this up, but the vast majority goes to the students, and I think that's going to be one of your next questions, but I just have to say that I think this is one of the great strengths of the Hebrew University that allows us to have groups of excellent students and postdocs that work with us towards these really interesting and meaningful goals. Yeah, and maybe I'll continue.
You see here on the stage a good example of 3 excellent ex-PhD students of the Hebrew University.
That's true. Proudly so.
Moran, I see that you are on every possible committee. You are sitting on the committee that designs the apartments for the new faculty.
Yes.
And recently I saw an email saying that you are running for the Senate of the Hebrew University. What does a young, enthusiastic woman like you has to do with an old establishment like the Senate of the Hebrew University?
That's a very good question. I feel like there are a lot of things that I care about in the university and in general, and I feel like if we, the younger generation, no offense to anyone in the crowd, want to ensure that the future of the university is where we want it to be, we need to tackle the things that are important to us. And I think the whole package is important. I think it's important from the Committee on the Housing for new faculty, because this is the first time that new faculty comes in and sees what the university has to offer, to the Strategic Planning Committee that I'm on, which is like looking further ahead. And the Senate is just that I was asked to be a part, and I said, okay, it's not that I'm like running for a campaign seriously there. I got an advice one time to say that at some point I'll be offered the things that I don't want to do, and I want to have enough things on my shoulders that I'm already doing, so it might as well be the things that I want to do. The problem is that I'm kind of picking up maybe a little bit too much. But when, you know, they're transferring to other people, I enjoy it most of the time.
Very good. We're a little bit short of time, so let me ask you a final question. Where would you like to see yourself in 10 years?
In 10 years, I would like myself to be not necessarily in the new computational medicine building, but probably in that realm. I think that computational medicine is an effort that I care dearly about. I think I would like to have a larger group that has more, I wouldn't say hierarchy, but more intermediate levels of science people.
When you say a larger group, what is the size of your group now?
So my group now is about 10 students, but some of them are undergraduate students that come here and there. There are a lot of projects that we want to do, and I believe we can get funding for, and sometimes already have funding for, but the limiting factor now is my time. And so I want us to be able to somewhat grow without overgrowing, but enable to achieve more of the scientific endeavors or goals that we want to achieve. I want us to be in a university that has all the amazing infrastructure that you talked about, so that we really focus on science and we find ourselves that this is what keeps us awake at night and not, like, you know, some technical issue that we're having trouble dealing with. I want to be able to be in a university that when I approach, you know, medium level postdocs and say, come join this university, this is the best place you can be, I can say it across as many fields as possible and attract even better people that come today.
Mo, the final word is yours.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that Mohan said, so I'm not going to repeat that. You can imagine that I said that as well. And maybe I'll mention one more point that also I think is a great asset of the Hebrew University, which is it really encourages multidisciplinary research all the way from undergraduate studies to the research centers and research groups on a faculty level. And two of the ones that I'm personally involved in and really want to see you know, grow and succeed, one is the Computational Medicine Center, which you've heard about and are going to hear about more. So, but this is we're working closely with that. And the other one that maybe you haven't heard about is growing connections between physics and computer science. So 2 years ago, we initiated an undergraduate program for computer science and physics students. We're now working towards establishing a graduate program, and I hope to also that we're able together to bring these two fields together, also in the research groups sides, and I think this is one of the great things about the Hebrew University, that it really encourages and pushes these kind of interdisciplinary fronts.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mor. Thank you, Moran. Thank you for sharing us your views. And now we are bringing the Master of Ceremony back. Romy, are you there? Excellent. We'll continue now to the award ceremony.
Thank you, Professor Sari. Thank you for enlightening words and enlightening guests. In a few moments, we will invite the award winners to the stage one by one. But first, we will present their names on the screen with music by cello player Karin Markovich. We now move on to our annual ceremony where we pay tribute to some of the outstanding researchers, presenting them with these prestigious awards. For that, I would like to invite to the stage President Professor Asher Cohen, Rector Professor Barak Medina, and Vice President Professor Re'em Sari. We begin with the K Innovation Awards. Mr. Isaac Kay will be joining us via video from London. Speaking on his behalf with us here today is CEO of the British Friends of the Hebrew University, Mr. Nigel Salomon. Mr. Salomon, please.
Good morning, Boker Tov. Whoops. University leadership, awardees, and friends, I'm delighted to be here. I would be much happier if Isaac and Myrna were here themselves, but I know they're watching from London. So I've been asked to speak on their behalf. Isaac and Myrna's family association with the Hebrew University goes back 3 generations, from the UK back to South Africa. They witnessed the extraordinary progress of this great institution in a manner that was completely unimaginable to the founders of the 1920s. The K Innovation Awards, together with the K Einstein Fellowships, reflect the family's very deep commitment to the Hebrew University. The goal is to unlock human capital, innovation, and to invest in great minds and researchers and students, and to do so across a full range of research disciplines. So this year, covering fields such as education, neurology, bacterial contamination, leukemia, drug development delivery for brain diseases, and targeted cancer therapies. And in some cases, these awardees are successful in commercialization, as well as securing coveted ERC and other very valuable grants. Isaac and Myrna continue to be inspired by Einstein's vision of a university giving back to humanity across the world knowledge and research. They encourage others to join them on this journey, and what better way, and what is so more important, and in this post-COVID era, to continue to invest in research. We wish the awardees every success, and we know they're going to go on to make our world a little better. And if I may just stray from my script, I'd like to just take a minute to pay tribute on behalf of all of us to Isaac and Myrna. And I want to draw inspiration from the words, the writings of the late, great Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, who passed away recently and who was honored 2 days ago by the university. And he tells a story of a visitor to a quarry, a machzava. And the visitor sees 3 workers doing exactly the same work. And he says to the first, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm breaking stones." He says to the second, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm earning a living." And he says to the third, "And what are you doing?" He says, "Well, me, I'm building a city." And that's exactly a parallel to Isaac and Myrna. They're building a university. They've been doing it for many years in seemingly small ways, but the scope and scale has led, in a way, to this great university today. And I think we owe them a huge round of applause. Thank you, and b'hatzlacha.
Thank you, Mr. Salomon. Please stay on stage. To hand out the awards, I'd like to ask Yesum President and CEO, Dr. Itzik Goldwasser, to join us on stage. I will now call each prize winner to come on stage to accept the K Award. And here the presidential table already raised. Following the handshakes, the award winners are kindly requested to stay on the stage for a group photo. First prize in the researcher category is awarded to Professor Itamar Gatti and Dr. Michal Phillips Bernstein of the School of Education for their work on reducing dropout from higher education by assessing psychosocial readiness for college. Professor Gatti and Dr. Phillips Bernstein, please join us on stage to accept your award. Second prize winners in the researcher category. One second prize in the researcher category goes to Professor Rami Akilan from the Lautenberg Center for Immunology and Cancer Research at the Faculty of Medicine for his work on gene therapy. Professor Akilan, please. Other second prize in the researcher category goes to Professor Tzvi Chayuka from the Institute of Biochemistry, Food Science and Nutrition of the Robert H. Smith Faculty of Agriculture, Food and Environment for his work on antimicrobial peptide mixture to tackle bacterial contamination. Professor Chayuka, congratulations. The first prize in the student category goes to Mr. Nadav Wallace from the Department of Developmental Biology and Cancer Research at the Faculty of Medicine for his work on RNA binding protein as a novel target for cancer therapy. Mr. Wallace. Okay, בבקשה. We have two second prizes in the student category. One second prize in the student category goes to Ms. Avintika Venkatachalam from the Lautenberg Center for Immunology and Cancer Research at the Faculty of Medicine for her work on targeting cancer vulnerabilities in acute leukemia. Mr. Venkatachalam. The other second prize in the student category goes to Dr. Hiba Nache from the Department of Pharmaceutics, School of Pharmacy, for her work on a new nanotechnology for enhanced drug delivery to the brain. Dr. Nache, congratulations. Congratulations to all the award winners. You may now all take your seats, and maybe you want to take a group photo before? Yes, please, the group photo. Congratulations, thank you very much. You all may be seated. Take your seats, please. בבקשה. We now turn to present the Polonsky Prizes for creativity and originality in the humanistic disciplines. I would like to invite Professor Ruth Cohen to the stage to introduce the Polonsky Prizes.
Hello and good afternoon already. Mr. Mark Polonsky asked me to deliver a few words on behalf of the Polonsky Foundation, as he was unable to arrive this year to the ceremony. I'm honored and pleased to do that. The Polonsky Foundation, established by dear Dr. Leonard Polonsky, Mark's father, is a grant-making charity focusing on cultural heritage and digitization, humanities, education and research, and excellence and innovation in the arts. Among other things, they donated also a big contribution for the digitization of the Albert Einstein archive at the Hebrew University. The foundation initiated the Polonsky Prize almost 20 years ago. I was here when the first one. Needless to say how encouraging it is for the recipients of the prize in various stages of their careers to win such a recognition. Writing books stands at the core of the humanities. This is a lonely and highly demanding task. Studying a historical period, a linguistic phenomenon, a philosophical problem, or an artistic world, the scholar is called for effectively wield a huge amount of details, ideas, previous studies, through leading arguments, clear structure, and appealing rhetoric. Writing a scholarly book imposes perseverance, ingenuity, and faith. Faith in the role of scholarship, deep thinking, and the republic of letters and books. In a world of fast cultural food, Polonsky Prize bestows on authors and related fields a much-needed prestigious reassurance. As a board member of the Van Leer Jerusalem Institute, I've also closely followed in recent years the admirable activities in the Polonsky Academy, which was established by the foundation, by the Polonsky Foundation, some 15 years ago. The Academy hosts about 20 postdoctoral scholars in a steady state for about 4 years from Israel and the world, many of whom find eventually permanent positions in Israeli universities and beyond. Inspired by their example, the Hebrew University, in collaboration with the German government, founded its parallel program about 12 years ago, the Buber Society of Fellows. The two programs often join forces, emboldening the presence and power of the humanities in the Jerusalemite world. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah. Let me also extend my personal congratulations to two dear colleagues and friends of the Faculty of the Humanities who won the first prizes, Professor Elitzur Bar Asher Siegel and Professor Yossi Mori for their fantastic achievements. Adding to them, Dr. Ofer Peres, that we met sometime during your studies, if you remember, Mrs. Daniela Zelter, and Mr. Yoel Binder. Congratulations to all of you. The studies you wrote go beyond the boundaries of your assigned fields, exemplary for scholars and students in wider connections. Mazal Tov and good luck to all of you, dear faculty members of the Hebrew University.
Thank you, Professor Rita Cohen. Please stay on stage. The presidential chair will please rise and join Professor Cohen. I will now call each prize winner to come on stage to receive the Polonsky Prize. Following the handshakes, the award winners are kindly requested to stay on stage for a group photo. We will start with the Researchers' Prize. This year, first prize in the Researcher category is awarded to Professor Elitzur Bar Asher Siegel from the Department of Hebrew Language at the Faculty of Humanities for his work on the NP strategy for expressing reciprocity, typology history, syntax, and semantics. Congratulations. The second prize in the Researcher category is awarded to Professor Yossi Mori from the Department of Musicology at the Faculty of Humanities for his work on liturgy and sequences of the Sainte-Chapelle, music, relics, and sacral kinship in the 13th century. Professor Mori, please. We now move on to the Young Researcher category. The prize in the Young Researcher category goes to postdoctoral fellow Dr. Ofer Perez from the Department of Comparative Religion of the Faculty of Humanities for his work on In the Trail of the Wailing King, a cultural biography of a traditional Indian narrative. And since Ofer is in Germany on a postdoc fellowship, this is his sister, Noah Perez Cohen, accepting the award on his behalf. First prize in the graduate student category is awarded to Ms. Daniela Zeltzer from the Cultural Studies program at the Faculty of Humanities for her MA thesis. What do we talk about when we talk about walking? Walking with Haredi women. Mr. Zeltzer, please. And this is the time for a group photo, please. Congratulations to all the award winners. You all may be seated. We now turn to the Neuroscience Award. I would like to invite Michael Dunkel to the stage to introduce and present the prestigious Prusiner Abramsky Research Awards in Clinical and Basic Neuroscience.
The Orion Foundation has been a partner of the University, of the Hebrew University, since 1987. We've had many projects in this university, but what inspired us to bring about these awards was a very well-known scientist here in Israel, Oded Abramsky. Oded was Dean of Medicine at the Hebrew University and Chief Scientist of the Ministry of Health. He, together with Stanley Prusiner, who was a Nobel, or is a Nobel laureate, brought about a change, which was the importance of basic and clinical research in neuroscience. And so the awards that will be given today are a reflection of that thinking, which is so important, because basic research is a fundamental investment, not only for the university, not only for Israel, but for the world. And I think that these awards are a reflection of the work that's been done and the work that is being done for the future of mankind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael Dunkel. Please remain on stage. Again, I will remind you, following the handshakes, the award winners are kindly requested to stay on stage for the group photo. The Research Award in Clinical Neuroscience goes to Dr. Amit Lotan from the Department of Psychiatry at the Hadassah Medical Center for his work on a biomarker of Alzheimer's disease presenting with late-life depression, a translational study. The Research Award in Clinical Neuroscience goes to Dr. Atira Bik from the Neuro Rehabilitation Center at the Hadassah Medical Center for her work on clinical applications of functional MRI and DTI. Dr. Bik. The Research Award in Clinical Neuroscience goes to Dr. Inbal Reuveni from the Department of Psychiatry and Outpatient Mental Health Clinic at the Hadassah Medical Center for her work on psychological and neural correlates of maternal childhood trauma. Dr. Reuveni, congratulations. The Research Award in Basic Neuroscience goes to Dr. Taufik Sheikh Ahmed from the Department of Pharmaceutics at the School of Pharmacy for his work on a new approach for treating epilepsy, a CNS-targeted antioxidant gene therapy. Dr. Sheikh Ahmed, please. The Research Award in Basic Neuroscience goes to Dr. Shai Sabach from the Department of Medical Neurobiology at the Faculty of Medicine for his work on mechanisms of image stabilization and light-induced mood regulation. Dr. Sabach, congratulations. Congratulations to all the award winners. You may now all return to your seats. The Klatschky Award for the Advancement of the Frontiers of Science is an annual prize founded by the late Miss Rachel Klatschky. The prize is awarded to Hebrew University faculty members for their achievements in the advancement of research, knowledge, and scientific frontiers. I would like to invite Vice President for Research and Development, Professor Re'em Sari, to introduce the prestigious Klatschky Award.
Thank you, Romy. Rachel Klatschky Zal was born in Mexico. She was a central figure in the Jewish community of Mexico and was one of the founding members of the Mexican Friends of the Hebrew University. In 1997, she received an honorary fellowship from the Hebrew University for her outstanding contributions to the State of Israel and the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. She supported worthy causes, including the absorption of new immigrants, scholarships for students, and various scientific research projects at the Hebrew University, all, of course, still relevant today. After she passed away, her sons Roberto and Leopoldo continued her legacy of support to the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. The Klatschky Prize has been awarded since 2003. The first Klatschky Prize in 2003 was given to Itamar Wilner, and the reason I'm reading this is because both me and my predecessor Shai Arkin also received this prize in previous years, so we like this prize.
Thank you, Professor Sari, and let's start. This year, the Klatschky Family Award for the Advancement of the Frontiers of Science is awarded to Professor Orna Kupperman from the Rachel and Selim Benin School of Computer Science and Engineering for her work on the formal verification of reactive systems.
And in addition to this, you have seen Orna's name also on the list of ERC recipients.
you very much. Congratulations. Please return to your seats. Many thanks to all the donors and a warm congratulations to all the winners. We are confident that you will continue your fascinating research and lead the Hebrew University to new heights. You represent the true leadership of tomorrow, each one of you with your achievements and research.
Scientific achievements takes time. For that, we need today to train ourselves as scientists, to gain experience, to learn as much as we can, so we could be part of this great community and leaders in the future.
Leadership for tomorrow means to me developing today the tools that we will need tomorrow. Not being satisfied with what we have today, but to continue striving to develop more tools and expand our toolbox.
It's about knowledge, it's about being expert about what you do, and it is about picking the right team to join your journey.
Promoting mental health issues through clinical work, research, and educating medical students, residents, and colleagues.
First, a vision, a dream where one wants to lead to. Second, to know the resources which are available to achieve this goal. And then finally, it's necessary to not fear of reshaping reality.
Investing in the younger generation, taking part in laying the ground for them to grow and develop and become the best version of themselves, taking us into the future.
Adaptive, flexible, and willing to make decisions in spite of the uncertainty involved.
I see the leader of the future as a person who contributes and educates to help making positive changes in people's lives.
Helping preserve and pass forward the legacy of our patients while leading our colleagues in this very same approach.
How we can incorporate and learn new scientific questions and to answer them together using several approaches in order to develop and establish a state-of-the-art research team.
This is a leadership where all groups of society are part of the decision-making process and where all beings and environment are taken into consideration.
I have many students from many different cultures in my group, and I would like to better understand how to manage the different personalities to help them excel in their studies and to help them to develop their own career.
As a young researcher at the Hebrew University, I work with many experienced scientists, and I've learned that there are many ways to do anything, and what's important is the execution of it and the future prospects.
Research is all about pushing the boundaries, promoting new understanding of the human brain, and revealing means to improve the health and life quality of humans.
My research is aimed at finding biological biomarkers for women at risk to develop anxiety and depression during pregnancy and postpartum.
In the future, we are going to see more and more computerized systems, robots, autonomous cars, and we want to make sure that these systems do not contain errors.
Our innovation is about finding a cure for a devastating neurological disorder, and we hope our findings would contribute to a more healthy and prosperous society.
When it comes to my own research, I think about leadership in terms of clarity and value.
My research deals with texts that represent a variety of human phenomena, literature and religion, philosophy and science.
My research focuses on the investigation of a novel nanotechnology for drug delivery to the brain with the potential to help and improve the life of patients with CNS and brain diseases.
I examined how women talk about their bodies and their walking in public space. And for me, this issue is super relevant when we look at how our socio and political context affects which communities feel more or less comfortable in public space.
I want to thank the committee and the donors for selecting me for this great award.
Thanks to everybody who made this journey possible.
Thank you for your contribution to our research and our work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I thank the donors for their generous contribution.
Thank you so much for supporting our research.
Many thanks to all of you for your very significant support.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wow. What a fascinating glimpse into so many interesting worlds. There is no doubt that tomorrow really does begin today. We wish much future success to all the award recipients and express our enormous gratitude to all the donors. Thank you very much for joining us in this celebration, the celebration of the best and the brightest. We hope to see you here again next year.
Pressure